Doing tonight? Woo! Really? When did I get to the Republican Party? Come on now. How's everyone doing tonight? Woo! Thank you. First and foremost, I realized something after Mike went and did an incredible job, Mike. Thank you, Eugene. Thank you for everything. Is that the longer I talk, the more I keep my kids away from cookies. So I'm going to be here for the next 45 minutes. I'm going to give a soliloquy because we want them to sleep tonight. Hi, Sarah. I just got the dirtiest look. I have to tell you. But honestly, folks, and very sincerely and from the bottom of my heart, thank you for coming out tonight. I mean, the truth is, the roads are terrible. The Hamilton Street Bridge is like a parking lot. And our city workers, and I'm biased, my dad was a city worker for 33 years. I remember the storm of '96 where he was working 16-hour days. Mom remembers those days. And so I know what they're going through. I know how hard it is. But the roads are still a mess, and you still braved it to come out today. And we appreciate that more than you know. A special thank you to my friend Eugene D. Pesquel. He's done such a tremendous job for the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. He saved us hundreds of millions of dollars, literally, while trying to find ways to improve our community. And sometimes it doesn't take the office of the governor or legislator to do so. Sometimes it just takes a smart person looking to see ways that we can do things better to really, truly improve our community. I thank you for all you've done for the Commonwealth, and thank you for coming down today. And, you were telling the story about a sleepover. I can tell the sleepover wasn't at your house.
No.
Because if it would have been, you'd have been a little bit more frazzled.
No.
So.
I've had it both ways.
Yes, it is. But we do appreciate it. I'd also very sincerely like to thank Mike. I'm just a freshman now. As I like to remind folks, Mike was my intern, and then he beat me to the legislature. Not that I hold a grudge or anything. But the truth really is that Mike has made the transition as state representative significantly easier. It's wonderful having a friendly face, somebody who can really help show me the ropes. Mike, you've been a tremendous colleague. You've done an amazing job for your constituents and for our city, but very personally, you've been a huge help to me. Everything from making sure I don't screw up too bad and letting me know where every coffee pot is in the Capitol, and it means more than you know. Thank you. A special thanks to Miriam Bertes. Miriam, I know you were here. Are you still here? There she is. Hi, Miriam. Miriam does an amazing job for the city of Allentown as vice president for Allentown Initiatives for the Greater Lehigh Valley Chamber, and she's also an incredible campaign treasurer. So thank you for all of your time and your help to make sure that we stay on the straight and narrow. Thank you. And a special thanks to my campaign chairwoman, Representative Jennifer Mann. Jen very personally has done so much, not only for our community, but so much for me, so much for our family, that I can never begin to repay you. Thank you for everything. And please allow me just a second to introduce my family. My wonderful wife, Jennifer, our daughters, Sarah, and Erin is joining us somewhere. Oh, Sarah and Erin are really just amazing kids. And look, I've been an 8-year-old who's sitting up here actually listening to what we have to say. And I can tell you, with 203 children on the floor of the house on a regular basis, we don't get that attention up in Harrisburg. And thank you, girls. And as Mike alluded to, this last year has been tough, especially around the holidays. We had many nights in Harrisburg that were long. I was miserable. And my family, Jen and the girls, were always with me, and they never complained. Thank you. Thank you for all the support. Also with us tonight is my mom, Georgette, who will always be the best campaign volunteer I'll ever have. My stepfather, Gary Vosler, and my father-in-law, Jim Sarah. Thank you all for coming out here tonight. It was almost 2 years ago to the date that I stood before you and I announced my candidacy, and honestly, I still can't believe it's been 2 years already. And at the very core of what I promised on that day was that I would always put Allentown first. That I would represent Allentown in Harrisburg and not the other way around. That I know where I come from, that kid from Tenth Shoe, who remembers that and goes to work every day to improve my hometown, improve my city. And I lived up to that promise. So, when, for example, the funding for the Allentown 911 Center became threatened, I got to work. See, I learned real quickly how Harrisburg works. And a bunch of politicians from across the state got together and decided that we spend too much money on 911. Let's stop and think about that for a second. Apparently 911 costs too much money for us to invest in. Anyway, so that's Harrisburg. Anyway, as a result, they really tried to force Allentown and actually the city of Bethlehem to consolidate our 911 centers. And this is a really bad decision. Because those folks in Harrisburg did not see that we've had really significant decreases in crime here in Allentown. They didn't know that our 911 operators, or didn't care that our 911 operators also monitor our camera network, which has been incredibly successful. They didn't care that the people of Allentown just wanted to be left alone for our 911 center. But I'm proud to report that I led a bipartisan group of legislators in both the House and the Senate to get that reversed. We fought that idea, and Allentown and Bethlehem's 911 centers are back and secure. So we know now that if you call 911, an Allentown person is going to answer that call, make sure a firefighter, or a police officer, or a paramedic shows up at your time of need, and that we're not lost in the ether in a forced consolidation by a bunch of people who've never been to the city of Allentown. I'm very proud of that. Speaking of really bad decisions that were made by a previous administration, our last governor decided to close the State Civil Service Test Center that was located right here on the east side of Allentown. We had one of the busiest civil service testing centers in the entire Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, with almost 5,000 people in the last year it was open. Went to our civil service center to take a test so that they could get a good, family-sustaining public sector job. Now, anybody from the Lehigh Valley that wants to get a job as a state liquor clerk, state store worker, or as a social worker who works for the Commonwealth, like a fish or game commissioner, they have to drive to Scranton, Philadelphia, or Harrisburg to be able to get one of those jobs. That's unconscionable. We struggle. Allentown's doing okay in job growth. The state is doing better, but still, we have too many people who are out of work or can't find good-paying jobs. There are thousands of good-paying state jobs that it now becomes even harder for residents of the Lehigh Valley to be able to access. That's just simply wrong. And I'm working with the bipartisan group of legislators once again because, frankly, my constituents and those job seekers don't care if you're Democrat or Republican. They just want to be able to get a good job. And I'm proud of our efforts. We're in the process, and I believe, I'm not promising yet, but I think we're on the right path to be able to get that office reopened. I like to tell stories. I think facts and figures are important. They guide our decisions, but they get a little boring, at least to me. I'm a Democrat. But so I want to tell a story. On one occasion, this is a true story, a retired post-office worker who lived on the south side of Allentown called my office. Talked to Nancy over here. Nancy brought it to my attention, and while we're talking about my district office, I'd like to point out Nancy Wilt and Elizabeth Martinez, who do an absolutely incredible job for the people of the 22nd Legislative District. They're there every day to make sure that all their needs are met. And I thank you so much for everything you ladies do for our community. And on this one particular moment, Nancy took a call and said to me, hey, you might want to hear this guy out. He's got a really good point. And see, he mentioned that as a retiree of retired federal work, he never paid his Social Security. And so as a result of that, he was actually ineligible to apply for the property tax rebate program. Now, any of you out there that have either applied for the rebate or have a loved one, a family member, a parent, perhaps a parent or an older sibling, has ever applied for the property tax rebate program, you know it's a really good program. But in this case, there was an entire group of Pennsylvania residents who are ineligible for it, just because of a simple technicality in the law. The good news is we got to work, and with Nancy's help, with Elizabeth's help, and with the inspiration from one of our constituents, a regular guy from the south side of Allentown, we wrote House Bill 1162. And in spite of the fact that there are so many more Republicans in Harrisburg than Democrats, we actually got the bill passed. It's passed in the House, it's in the Senate right now, and we're in conversation with the Senate to get it moving. We are one step closer to fixing this inequality in our state law. And these are just 3 examples of the kinds of work that we do, about how my job and my belief is that we got to put Allentown first, put the people of our city forward, so that we're in Harrisburg. So when I'm in Harrisburg, I advocate for us in our hometown, not advocate for the Harrisburg or our special interests. But as Mike said, and frankly as politicians are wont to say, our work is far from done. We're not done yet. We have to restore, and as we've talked about this a lot, but we truly have to restore the cuts in funding of Allentown schools. Now, Sarah's a 3rd grader at Lehigh Parkway Elementary School. Next year, Aaron will be a kindergartner at the same school. And to be sure, Sarah's is having a great educational opportunity, but let's be honest. We can't continue to cut funding. We can't continue to eliminate teachers. We can't continue to have property taxes increase and not think it's going to be bad for our kids, for our communities, for our homeowners. I'm committed to resolving this trend and reversing this trend. We need to invest real money again in our schools for our kids, for our community, and for our property taxes. We also must increase investment in our early childhood education. My wife is a daycare teacher. She sees every day the impact that it has when kids at an earlier age, 2, 3, 4 years old, have the opportunity to learn their letters and numbers, learn their shapes, learn their colors. Both of my kids have gone through a successful pre-K program. We had a plan in place to be able to fund our pre-K education. It hasn't passed. I'm committed to working on it so that our children can get an earlier head start so they can be ultimately successful in our role. And while we're on the topic of education, I'm working on legislation that will make college more affordable for the children who attended and graduated from Pennsylvania's high schools, regardless of the legal status of their parents. We're calling it the Pennsylvania Dream Act, modeled on similar legislation in the House. People who get up and go to school, graduate from Pennsylvania's universities, Pennsylvania's high schools, deserve the same opportunities that I had as a poor kid in Center City, Allentown, who was able to put myself through college because I went to an affordable, good university, Penn State. I did that for you, Mike.
You are.
Yes, I am.
You are something.
Watching you. Now, it is absolutely imperative as we're talking about education, as we're talking about our communities, that we address the inequality that exists between the haves and have-nots in our community. The middle class is shrinking, and it's shrinking for a number of reasons. We've seen a number of assaults on persons' rights collectively, bargained and organized. That is just absolutely improper and terrible. We also see that there are people who work full-time and still struggle to pay their bills. It is past time that we in Pennsylvania raise our minimum wage to a level that will help the good, hardworking people of our community pull themselves out of poverty. Lastly, we need to truly invest in the health and well-being of our veterans. People in the room know that this is something that I've been very passionate about since my time on City Council. The men and women who sacrifice for our freedom and our safety must never be overlooked. I'm writing legislation right now that will begin to start funding programs that will reverse the scourge of veteran suicide. There are too many veterans who take their own lives. In fact, frankly, more veterans have taken their own lives since Afghanistan and Iraq than were killed in combat. So I have a plan in place that will start putting money into the hands of the organizations that do a real job in trying to help our returning soldiers, make sure that they're able to assimilate back in life, and have somebody to turn to in their hour of need. Now, the list of things that need our attention goes on. And as you know, I could talk a little bit, and I could give an entire speech about mental health or access to health care. We could discuss in even more details the way to strengthen our middle class, and we could spend hours talking about the humanitarian crises that exist abroad and in our own communities, places like Syria, places like Puerto Rico. Because there is so much that we need to do to improve our community. I'm asking for your vote. I don't know that too many people in this room aren't here because they're supportive of us. But I'm asking for your vote. I'm asking for your help. I'm asking for you to talk to your neighbors. I'm asking you to go out with us, knocking on doors, telling folks that we need your help and we need your support. The needs that face our community are just too great. The challenges in Harrisburg are too great, as you've heard from a number of folks tonight. And again, I know we're going to be successful on primary election day, which again is April 26th, with all of you out there helping us out. Folks, again, I appreciate so very much the opportunity to come out here tonight. It's a cold and miserable night, and it's a tough time. But the issues that are facing our community and our Commonwealth are way too seriously to take this lightly. Folks, again, thank you so much. Appreciate it all. Honorable.